I didn't expect the big brands to be so resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how shareholder return was such a powerful, a different word than motivator, but factor in helping try to save the world.
Welcome. Thank you, David. Thank you for coming today, David. And if you don't know me, I'm Kevin Parenteau, and I'm founder of Asana at Home. And this is Earth Day event, our first Earth Day event. And actually, totally not my idea. This is actually the whole Earth Day thing, rather the event, I shouldn't say, rather than the thing, really was the teachers on the Asana at Home platform. This was their idea. Originally, Nick brought it up as she likes to do a regular Earth Day thing, and then other people got inspired, and it became this whole day thing. So yeah, so it's really why this is happening is the passion and the inspiration and commitment from our teachers, and their commitment to the community and the environment. And so, it was interesting. I was thinking, David, like it was, I was thinking about this Earth Day event, and who better that I know to speak kind of on this topic is you, sir. And I've known David now, I would suggest, thinking about 13 years. And I think it's been 13 years because it's 2008.
Yeah,
I think we met, and so it's been a while, and we've both seen each other through different entrepreneurship, personal journeys, that sort of thing. I don't know, maybe we can start off. Well, why don't you tell us about your day, and then we can get into you telling us a bit about you and such. Earth Day, big day for Plastic Bank and Plastic Bank Foundation. Why don't you just tell us a little bit?
Humanity at large. I like to be in the conversation that although we're celebrating Earth Day, I think what we're not paying attention to is we're actually celebrating this opportunity to keep humans alive. Yay, humans, because the Earth is going to be just fine. And it's about the Earth, because, if we weren't here, give it 1,000 years, the significance of man would be relevant in nature. So it's really about how we steward the Earth and how we participate in its restoration and how we live in harmony, not just with nature, but within ourselves as well, where we can be in a place that we are not always striving for something bigger, something better, spending more money, looking to have something that we don't have yet, which is what has returned us to where we are.
Right. That's fantastic. And definitely it's interesting to think about like what you're bringing up here, thinking about really it's about, at the end of the day, it's about us. You're right. The Earth's going to be fine with or without us.
Totally. It'd be better without us.
Exactly. But like, why don't we, let's take a few steps back here. Tell us, for those who don't know who you are, I do, obviously. So for those who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Why don't we just start with that, and then we'll dive into a bit of how you got to where you are. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think it's important to always communicate that I'm just some dude out of Vancouver. Like I'm just some dude really just like doing some crazy stuff. And I always like to stress that because I always want to keep the space and the knowing that everybody has the power inside of them to change the world. That is irrefutable. And nothing I'm doing is against the laws of physics. I'm not bending time or space. And so it's really just creative thinking that's got me to where we are. And so Plastic Bank, we're ultimately alchemists. We've turned what was waste into worth. True alchemy. It's never been more available than it is today. And we've done that in a way that prevents the flow of plastic from entering into the ocean. We've created a global chain of stores and bank branches for the world's emerging. The true poor, the ones who make less than $1 a day, where everything in the store is available to be purchased using plastic garbage. And I'm most proud that we offer school tuition and medical insurance and cooking fuels and Wi-Fi and cell phone minutes, everything that poor need to emerge poverty but can't afford, using garbage that would otherwise flow into the ocean as money. Now, all the plastic we collect, we sell to amazing organizations, values-aligned organizations around the world, from SC Johnson, like buy a bottle of Windex, or Hugo Boss, or Coca-Cola, or Gillette, and all these other powerful brands that want to connect the consumer's need and the consumer's demand that they do better. And we make big brands, we don't make them, we give big brands the opportunity to do better. That's in a big nutshell of what we do.
Excellent. So, I mean, like really, tell us what was the inspiration behind all of this? Let's go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as your entrepreneurship, you can start it from anywhere. So why don't we go from that?
Farther, really, and often asked, I like the question because, where did it originate? And I think that everything in our lives, the consciousness to go back and look at everything that influenced us, everything that we found to be negative at first, everything that we thought that was a horrible experience. And we get to look back at those and say, what was the gift in that? What was the opportunity in that? What was the message in that? What did I get to surrender in that? Then we get to have the richness of life. Now, that's an important conversation because the plastic bank's origination came from all of that. I grew up on the island. I grew up in Victoria, and I had my playground. My playground was the beach across from my street. No one else played there. I played there. My friends hung out with me, and we built rafts and played in that little beach. It was a remarkable experience as a child. Now, on the way to school, there was also another big beach called Willows Beach, and I got to kind of walk that all the time. And I began witnessing the degradation of the marine ecosystem when I was a kid. I remember beach combing. At first, it was a ton of fun. It was like, oh my goodness, let's go see if we can find something that's washed up ashore, and would look for things. So where could it have come from? But over the course of time, over the years, more and more was washing ashore, and would see more and more garbage. Would see, applicators and things that would just wash up. That would you just knew, it was like, oh, hold on a second, this is not something I even want to find. This is something that I need to repel. And just through the course of time, it's always been within me. And every vacation has always been to the beach. The ocean's edge really is more of my playground. I love beach vacations because I just feel whole there. I feel connected to the earth at the ocean's edge. It's a place we're all from, irrefutably. And moving forward, I was inspired by images of the decomposing corpses of albatross on Midway Island. Just so many experiences in my life that moved me. And as an entrepreneur, I think that one of the things we do is look for solutions. We're solutions focused. That's the way that it works. And in the problem, I knew that a solution must lie somewhere. And I began seeking it. And it was at an event in Silicon Valley where I was exposed to 3D printing, additive manufacturing, I guess it's in the industry called. And I was able to witness a single strand of plastic transformed into a brown belt. And it was this 70s looking belt. And when I asked what the price of the belt was, sale price, it was $80. And the cost of the material, they told me, was 10. And in that moment, I recognized that the only thing that determined the value of the material was its shape. And I knew in that there may be a solution because it was the way we viewed it. The shape as well was just something inside of us. The plastic bottle, because of its shape, or the packaging, because of its shape, people have automatically equated it to be worthless. Where the belt, because of its shape, $80, same volume of material. And so I knew inside of that there was a solution. And that really was your origination of the idea of the plastic bank. But there was a powerful conscious journey behind it as well.
All right. Now, so tell us about that. Why don't you tell us like sort of the formation of the concept, the idea, like, you talked about being, aware of it as a child, growing up, going to the beach, whatever, like Like what said to you, darn it, I got to do something about it. We got to create a company, we got to, this sort of thing. Tell
Something
us
had,
about that.
something had to happen. And I think that maybe because, it was early in my life, I was able to witness the degradation 35 years ago. A lot of people think it's a modern phenomenon. They think that it's just, you know, modern consumerism that has landed us to where we are. They didn't realize that the plastic's been flowing in the ocean for nearly 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was searching for a solution. I think that what I want to communicate, or what I'd like to communicate in a conscious community, is that even though I had the idea and I knew that there was a solution here somewhere, and I knew that the poor wouldn't throw money away, to give greater context here, 80% of the plastic flowing in the ocean is coming from areas of extreme poverty. And if you really don't have a door or a floor, it's a common expression of mine, but it's the truth of it. Our communities don't have either of those. They maybe live under plastic tarps that are kind of, woven together, or cardboard, or all kinds of crazy things. They don't have that. And then, when you have plastic, what do you do with it? When the community has no recycling, for sure, they can't afford food or water for the community. So there's no recycling. And so what do? They burn it, or they throw it in the canal. Either of them are catastrophic. And so we recognize that the poor don't throw money away. And if the areas that are leaching plastic into the ocean have poverty, well, how do we solve the poverty? How might we use the plastic as money for the world? So that's really the origination of the idea. How do I have the plastic look like money?
Mm-hmm.
Side of all of that, although I had all of that idea, I had all of the, the overwhelm with it, the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I felt like this really crazy idea, like it was like really loud. I had all of these thoughts and voices, and I had all this contemplation that could be really a solution. And, we could have stores for the poor, and they could use plastic as money, and all of those things. It was just really was quite visceral. But then I had a second thought. Second thought was equally loud. Actually, it was louder and busier. Because the second louder, busier thought was all of the ego mind, all of the fear that arose. Who are you, David? How could you do that? It's, you want to build a global supply chain of material, returning it to the biggest companies in the world. How are you going to build a technology? How would you communicate with the most illiterate and, violent communities in the world? How would you communicate with the thousands of dialects just in Africa? What would it be like to put the team together and create all of those things? It certainly seemed overwhelming at first. So I had the very first thought of the plastic bank, loud and aggressive. The third thought, or the second thought rather, as well, just equally even louder, or equally as loud, and even more aggressive. And, I like to communicate that the birth of the plastic bank really came in the third thought. So it wasn't the first two ideas at all. It was this third idea. And the third thought just simply said, David, you don't need to be that person. What you get to do is slowly choose to become the person who can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the powerful moment for me. That's where the plastic bank was born. It was in the consciousness. It was in a moment to say that I didn't need to be anything. It freed me of attachment. It freed me of the self-judgments. It freed me of all those things that keep so many people from doing so many great things. I'm convinced that there have been countless world-changing, life-changing, societal-changing ideas that have died because the person who had the idea was afraid.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, because when I made a few little notes about things, I wanted really, and I'm glad you brought it up, to talk a bit about that, because yes, I think on the surface, we're starting, let's say, from zero, and you basically, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there was other plastic recyclers in the world, but your approach is different, definitely, in a sense of, like, again, connecting poverty and enriching people's lives that way, third world countries, exchanging material for goods. So it was certainly, it's not, so in a way you almost kind of created a new kind of category of business within the recycling sphere. And I imagine it being quite a daunting task. I mean, just thinking about it, I'm sure anybody thinking about it, there'd be a lot of like, oh, I can't do that, it's impossible. Tell us a bit about, fear, doubt, those sort of things. what, like, I mean, you addressed some of them, but like, what still kept you going? Like, what kept you from just full stopping, and what kept you from that? And maybe you can share a moment where you were like going, forget this, go do something else, go do something I know, or whatever. Like, why don't you tell us a bit about that? I find that incredibly interesting.
There were so many reasons to give up. So many reasons to give up. I had to persevere so much. I mean, we've had people murdered and fires and arsons and bullets flying and just everything that's occurred. All of the, petrochemical companies that, were vowing to work against us because, of course, they didn't want recycling. They wanted to sell more virgin material. There was just so much. But it really comes back to that moment, that conscious moment that I had that space in between the thoughts and who I am. I was able to find in that moment this awakening, this opportunity to understand that the fear of failure was just a fear. It was just a fear. It wasn't real. And I knew that I could continue moving forward and I would learn nonetheless. I had different motivations along the way that kept me going for sure. I remember the first time that I was in Haiti, not the first time, but we'd already begun the ecosystem and I was trying to implement and we were struggling and we were trying to get people to buy the material. And I didn't know anything about plastic at the time. And we were shipping dirty material around the world that people kept denying. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And while trying to increase volumes and communicate, and I had staff and things on the ground. And I remember being with Jean, who is downtown Port-au-Prince. One of our models is cooperatives where we bring in individuals together and they work as a cooperation, as a collaboration where they all share in case someone's sick, everyone, no one's destitute. That ends poverty on its own. But Jean was the president of the cooperative we put together, and he had two little girls. And the day was profound for me. Is that I was with Jean, and I said, Jean, how has it been? How's Plastic Bank working for you? What's occurring? And he was able to look at me with his two little girls. This man living under some tarps in a lot that had rubble in it. And he said, "Well, David, I can see my little girls going to school, not to school, but to university. I can see them going to university for the first time." And he had this time perspective. He had this ability to look forward. And, it was his first time, I think, that he expressed it as well. And you could see this kind of, this look in his eyes. He saw the world newly. He saw himself newly. It was a powerful day. I really do think that I witnessed not just poverty leaving Jean, but I think I left that situation having experienced my poverty leaving me. Mm-hmm. That there was something bigger to give myself to, and that the challenges that I was going to face paled in comparison to the opportunity that lie ahead of me.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because, when I asked the question, obviously I thought to myself, well, we're talking about fears of the business and such, but also as well, like, in our own insecurities or what have you. But it's interesting you brought up there was actual intimidation from outside corporations and, whether it's corporations or union or groups or whatever. There was actually people out there that were really quite fearful of what you guys are up to. So it's like you faced not only your own personal fears, but also like your own like our own sense of insecurity. But there was also outside too.
There was outside, but now I get to look back at it and I get to love all those people as well. They gave me the ability to persevere. They gave me the ability to learn and get to where we're. And if I take anyone listening a little bit forward, we just announced our first 1 billion bottles collected. 1,000 million bottles. It's a giant feat. We have tens of thousands of collectors in the application. We increase collector incomes by more than 40%. And inside of everything that we're doing is this banking application, and there's an immediate ability to earn a credit rating and borrow money and be able to truly ascend poverty. So there's been so much that we've had to create and persevere. And it came from other people's fear. Because anytime someone thought that I couldn't do it or they felt threatened, that was fear. And so I get to look inside the human as well. I got to see, where is the fear coming from? Why? How would it work? What would it look like if we? What would I have to create where you wanted us to win as well? Because our whole business is a beautiful virtuous cycle. It's win to the sixth power. Everybody wins. The consumer wins. The brands win. The earth wins. The collector wins. The plastic bank wins. The processor wins. Even the plastic wins. It becomes new again. Like everything and everybody wins. It's this beautiful synergistic win-win or no deal way of business. I think more of a way of life. And I think that inside of it, when you build abundance for other people, when you're truly steward and see them and you act for them and you have this love in your heart to have people win and you create a way that everybody does and everybody wants you to win too. And there's even more abundance in it. There's even a greater way of doing business. I think it's just the right way to do business. And I think that that will emerge as the way where businesses are there to do good in the world. That will be the next paradigm of business. We've been through hundreds of years of degradation, and now it's time to change.
Just thinking back to something I'd said a little earlier when you had talked to that gentleman in Haiti and him reflecting on him being able to send his children to university. Yeah, it's interesting. Like when you think about the plastic bank, yeah, we're $1 billion bottles out of the ocean. That's big, and we can definitely talk more about that. But also affecting lives in a way. So again, these two sort of things. What, if at all possible, what inspires you more? What gives you the energy more? What helped push you through all of that doubt, fear, intimidation, whatever you want to call it? What gave you the lift? Like what of those two things? Billion bottles of the ocean or changing people's lives? What do you think is your big one?
Lives, changing lives, changing lives. 20,000 plus members, like it's really remarkable. And we're affecting around 85,000 people, and we're putting extra money in the hands of. We took something that was garbage, that was worthless, that was flowing into the ocean, and we gave it money, and all of that money goes into the hands of our collector community. Not all of it, but much of it. So like, wow, how inspiring is that? It's remarkable. We have so many stories of, people. Not sure if you were there when we were in Bali, and they went and they met the collector who talked about not having to go to a loan shark to be able to have their baby. They were able to collect enough material to be able to pay for everything. So the debt wasn't there. So the baby wasn't born into family servitude because they'd have to go to a loan shark. We have countless stories of people who've been, even during COVID, where people found the plastic bank as a result of not being able to work during COVID, and because of the plastic bank, they were able to afford rice for their family. Like, that for me is as well. That's why, like, I find there is such a need in the world, and I know that what we do has a powerful and profound impact on lives. I'll die doing this. It is a life well lived. There's nothing else that I could imagine doing or wanting to do. I mean, it's all consuming. Turns out to be a 14-hour a day gig, but it's so much fun. Like, oh my goodness. And things show up, and there's no distinction between, in purpose, there's no distinction between, I hesitate. I watch my words here too, because I was going to say the work you do, but I hesitate on the word work. And the things you do during the day and the things I do during the day are purposeful and impactful in the world. So I just get to do all day long purposeful things. So there's no real distinction between work and my life. My life is just purposeful. And I get to witness the accomplishment of all the time. So it's really, I profoundly am the one, I receive the profound gift in it all. The world gets to benefit. It's beautiful, and I love that. But I get to become the person. I really get to feel it all the time, and my kids are proud.
It's amazing. What was again, let's stepping back when you were like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and when you sort of made that commitment to yourself or to other or to whoever, uh, what from that point to now surprised you, like just like I would never have expected? I mean, I imagine there's a number of things, but what would you say, the big, like, wow, this is something I would not have expected?
I didn't expect a few things. Um, I didn't expect the big brands to be so resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how shareholder return was such a powerful, I don't know, a different word than motivator, but factor in helping try to save the world. Because unless in public companies it serves the shareholder, it's the fiduciary duty of the CEO to serve shareholder above all else. So to actually make a change and take a material that's above commodity pricing, they won't do it. Even if that material changes the world, they won't do it because there's a duty to shareholder. It's actually illegal for them to do it. So that confine for me was just mind blowing. That's why I'm inspired by companies like Danone, who's the world's largest B Corp. Now, B Corps allow organizations to not put the shareholder first. There's still a duty to serve profitability, but they can put other people ahead of the shareholder without fear of imprisonment. That's why we see Danone making a big impact in the world. They're really trying to come forward and really make a big change. And they're having some great success doing it.
Just so other people, like people listening to this, kind of understand. So what you're saying here is in terms of they serve the shareholders. So I guess when they're making a choice, virgin plastic, I guess, is the
Correct.
cheapest,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And then straight up recycled plastic, it's
Correct.
more expensive, and then social plastics a little more expensive still.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's purely the way social plastic, it's just the way that it's extracted, refined, that sort of thing, right?
I use the expression that, if every bottle was $5, would we see any in the streets or in the environment or in garbage
Right.
cans or in the ocean? Well, none. No, we know that. So it's not the plastic, it's the way we perceive it that proves it's
Right.
to do with the plastic. As much as you want to vilify it, most people should shut up because if it was $5 to go get it anyhow. It's the same perception for the poor, it also has economic value for the collector. Like right now, everyone wants to degrade and diminish the collector and tell them that they should go and collect, kilos and kilos and kilos of material and pay them pennies, like literally pennies. And they won't do that either because they still need to eat. So they're not going to go and collect the material when it's only worth 2 or 3 pennies per kilo. That's ridiculous. That'll never happen. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be priced at such a way that it's actually worth their time to go get it. It has to be something that a basic labor job or other sustenance living or basic agriculture won't be able to make as much as collecting the material. We price our material in a way that actually is just the incentive. If you want to change the world, that's it.
Right.
So it
So
has,
essentially what you're doing differently is you pay for the material more
correct.
than just say your garden variety
Yep.
plastic recycler.
Yeah, that comes
And
from
thus,
household, consumer, post-consumer, where again the plastic is entering from areas of poverty. There is no recycling infrastructure. The government's not doing anything about it,
right,
and more of that material needs to be collected because it's flowing into the ocean, and we need to increase
right,
the incentive to go get it. That's why we have
right.
programs at schools and things like that. Because now when it's transferred into school tuition, it's like, oh, it's the end of poverty. So that's a giant thing for our
Hmm.
cultures.
So I guess what we're saying is not all recycled plastic is sort of created equal in that sense, right? Like if I go and buy a consumer good that says recycled plastic, we don't know really
Where it
how
came
it came to
from,
us or what conditions it's under, is what you're saying.
comfort in the fact that it's not virgin plastic. So, one of the things I always like to communicate here is that everyone has a choice every time you buy
Mhm.
something, you're voting for it. So I would recommend that even if it's not social plastic, you should be walking into stores and asking the manager, for those items that are recycled content. Show me that it's recycled. Show me those items that are, because it's the demand. Every time you buy something, you vote for it, and companies will continue to give you what you vote for.
Right, right, right. And so unless you, and would you say it has to kind of go beyond a corporation saying a feel good story and more about it being a matter of life and death for the business, for them to really, some of these to really make change.
Yeah.
Because, some of them want to appear like they're doing something, I guess, and trying to sound, not trying to sound skeptical, but I think there is different motivations.
No, no question. No, it has to be a financial benefit. And what's
Yeah,
occurring today is when we look at this Greta generation, when we have the tens of millions of students marching through the streets, in advocacy, against climate change, that generation is look at the proliferation of used clothing stores. Like, my 15-year-old, like, although she likes new shoes, but she wants to go buy used clothes because that is way more important and more fashionable today. So that generation is not going to do business with you if you're taking virgin plastic, putting some chemicals in it, and not having some closed loop system where that material just ends up in the environment. You'll be vilified by the next generation. And we have to be in the knowing that businesses will only succeed by investing in what will be and not what is. And what will be is the regeneration economy. Those organizations who are repairing the damage that's been done will be swimming in that blue ocean, the one that's non-competitive, where they get to have market share and be profitable and everything else. And companies are racing to meet that now. Now,
right.
in addition, last comment is that what is occurring and what we see very alive with all of our customers as they report is they have trouble. It's almost impossible for them to hire millennials and the next generation because they only want to work at places with purpose. So
Right.
their fear now is just that. They don't have
Right.
staff and they know they got to implement purpose.
When do you think you're talking about the next generation and their what companies they want to align with, whether it's work or buy or what have you, like, but at the same time we're talking about these companies and the way they're acting, and they need to serve a shareholder. Like, is it going to be one of these things where there's just going to be this tipping point where all of a sudden they're going to look and all of a sudden sales will drop or going to other places? It would take an immense amount of quote unquote persuasion or courage from a CEO or chairman of a board to say, hey, shareholders, we're going to do this, but dividends will be less and what have you. I mean, the guy's probably asking
That
to
won't
be
happen.
fired,
That he will be fired, and that's illegal.
right?
It's in fact illegal for him to do that. Now that's where our customers are family businesses like SC Johnson. It's a family business. There's no shareholders.
Right.
And Fisk is like, and the whole motto of SC Johnson is making the world a better place. He, in this like
Right.
generation of the business, family business, he's using the profitability of the company to change the planet. He's using the categories and the market to actually make good in the world. Is profound. Or even Henkel family business as well. And they're like, well, no, we're going to change the world. That's what we're going to do. We have to do it. They're just more nimble. Now, with the other organizations, if people don't want to work for you, you got to pay way more to attract talent. You got to have someone sell their soul. So if you're going to pay 30%, 40% more to attract talent, well, that's going to influence your profit line anyhow. So why not put that into a material that helps change the world and allows you to be able to hire higher quality staff at lower wages? So there's an equation that they're learning that has to be
Yeah.
done and weighs on the bottom line.
Like, do you feel they're learning? Do you feel like
No, they're learning that the consumer is making a demand. That's what we're learning. We're learning that they're losing market share. We're learning that they're getting beat up in social commentary. That's what's occurred. They didn't make the decision. They went, tooth and nail. Like they resisted as much as they could. And you look at the big ones like Unilever and things like that they sound sustainable, but they didn't zero occurring. Zero. I've been dealing with them for the last 8 years. They were the first people I prospected because I felt out of all of their media and communication, like, oh, they're so sustainable. And I said, this would be a perfect brand alignment. Nope, not at all. Oh, it's a penny more? Sorry. I'll do business with you. It's cheaper. Oh, so what you want me to do is degrade the poor more so that you could win, the shareholders can win. Yeah, pretty much. So
right?
that's a challenge.
Yeah.
That was a big
And
surprise. Back to the question. That was the big surprise.
right.
Easier.
Wow. It is remarkable. Like, I think um, I don't know, you'd think as a consumer that corporations are looking for solutions because they're seemingly trying to appear not to be a bad guy or what have you, but it's like either decision making is not there, or it's kind of out of their hands, or which leads me to believe if it's in a way like you're suggesting, that it's a bit out of their hands because they have to serve the shareholders. It's almost like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's kind of like,
Yeah,
what is it going to freaking take? Like,
right. Yeah,
what is
but
it going to
market.
take?
And so what's happening is that their competitors are showing up, and that
Yeah,
some of the risky ones are showing up and saying, "Yeah, that's what we're going to do," and they're gaining market share, and they're
yeah,
growing in those categories. And so if they're growing in those categories, the people who aren't doing anything are losing market share. Oh, okay. Well, now the CEO gets to say, "Hey, we have to do this because this is the only way we're going to protect earnings." So,
right.
okay, so that's what's happened. We needed the risky few at first, right? It's always that way. It's always the heretic that shows
Right.
up and says, ah, no, I'm going to go do it. And then the second person follows, and then it becomes real, and then the world changes. I just didn't think it would take this long because the ocean can't wait. Humanity can't wait. There's a
Yeah.
truck of plastic entering the ocean every minute of every day. Like
Yes.
how long did they wait? Like what a tragedy. It's treason against humanity. I think they should,
So really, it really took like one or two companies to really sign on before it
yeah,
sort of really got momentum.
yeah. It did, yeah. And now everybody wants to play with us, which is really, really amazing. Like it's just there's so much happening. We're with one of the world's largest car manufacturers that is putting us into their seating, into the seats. They found a supplier for their floor mats made out of discarded fishing nets. Beautiful, beautiful story. It's an electric vehicle. So discarded fishing nets in the floor mats, and then social plastic in the seats. So the car is like, because they're putting out, ultimately, a vegan car in the end, right? Something that's really purposeful for the world. So that's amazing. So things like that are really catching on. People looking to really create some uniqueness with our story. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
So that must have been, that first order must have been that must have been something. I mean, do you really like to tell us a little bit about that? Because it must have been, like you said, it changed sort of everything, and in a way, I guess it legitimized kind of what you were doing,
It did.
right?
And I wasn't
Uh,
anymore at that point. No, it was
right.
not crazy at that point. That took years to get to that point. And Henkel was the real first customer. And although not large volumes, they committed to a partnership with us. And they began to communicate our relationship. And that had other people wake up. Their competitors said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And it did. It gave it legitimacy. And for me, it gave me energy. It gave me power. And there was a lot of times where I thought that I was going crazy, right? So many people trying to travel the world all the time in sales meetings, trying to get people to make a decision, trying to get them to do something. I even tried to raise money at some point because I was out of money. I was out of money, and out of the last gift that my mother could ever give me, she died, and I received an inheritance. It really was her last beautiful parting gift. She was an immense environmentalist, a huge animal advocate, and I think that she'd be incredibly proud. The very day that I couldn't make payroll was when the inheritance showed up. It wasn't a lot of money, but it got me through, and it got me to a point where then Henkel showed up and made some purchases, and that is really what helped me get through it all. Uh, yeah, grateful for the heartfelt last gift of my mother.
Right. Like it's like a kind of, you got to the edge maybe a few times, and then sort
Totally,
of that gift happened, right? Like,
totally. Yeah,
right. And I think, that's that's the interesting thing about entrepreneurship, and especially in your case here too. There is so much that going to the edge, and I mean inventing, basically inventing a market category like you
yeah,
have. I mean, wow.
right.
I guess you didn't, you're more educating a market than anything at the beginning.
And
Like it's
that's a
not,
really
it's, it was, I guess it's not really like a convention, like a quote unquote a conventional business where there's already got established need or whatever. And you're just sort of like, okay, well, I see it there, I'll plug in, I'll build something.
Right. I'll
You
do it.
basically had to educate
Totally. Yeah.
a market. And
Yeah, I had to give
yeah,
live chickens, Kevin. There was like, honestly, live chickens. Like, which came first, chicken or the egg? I had to create the market. They said, no, live chickens. Everyone give birth to live chickens. And no, it's not good enough. Live chickens giving birth to live chickens. So that's what was occurring. It kind of all had to happen at the same time. Build a market, build awareness, build the supply chain, build everything else. Don't go crazy. So,
wow. Yeah.
right.
Is there anything you would have done differently looking back? Like, I mean, I guess 2020 hindsight, you could say this, but I mean, kind of,
I That's a really hard one for me. No, I want to search for something. I could say that there would have been things. I'm sure that there would have been things. I maybe would have been more conservative with money and things like that. And but at the same time, it's who I am now. We're here because of all those learning lessons and
right,
build the exponentiality. So I would never change any of it because, the only thing that I would do is really spend more time awakening, spending more time in meditation, spending more time in that absolute infinite space of the world. That's really where I find that without coincidence that the plastic bank continues to appear. When I really get into a place outside of thought, when I get out of the ego mind attachment that I'm doing things right or wrong, that I get out of that finite way of being. And then when I powerfully into my practice, that I make my decisions out of the place when I come out of thinking. And then the
right,
world just kind of shows up. It's remarkable. I wish I had spent more time with that. I wish I knew of that at the time, but it's what arose, and I have that now. And
right.
if I really want to change the world now, like it's a bit esoteric, and some people think it's completely woo, but I'm telling you, the most crazy thing in my life is that the more I meditate, the more the world shows up. And if I want something powerful to happen tomorrow, I go and meditate, and then lo and behold, something amazing occurs. It's the craziest thing. It's so powerful. It's so amazing. It's just being awake. It's amazing.
Right.
Because being in that ego mind attachment, that's very finite. Like when we get into our fears, it's something that we had been created with. Someone created us in that space and those fears and those thinking. And that's a finite way of being. And the world is infinite. We're just infinite. Everything we want is available in infinitum, and everything is there. And so when we come out of the finite, we're available to receive all of the gifts of the universe.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. It's interesting. Like when, I've been really enjoying the thoughts and topics about doubt and fear. And the last few months, I remember talking to a few friends about it, and it being like, like for me, I've kind of turned my perspective around doubt and fear. Like, well, if you have some doubts and have some fears, you're probably going the right direction, like in some respects. Like, and I suggest that in a way that, like, because doubt and fear kind of comes out of that often safety, right? That we are going outside of what we are most comfortable with or what we know or whatever. And so that idea of that change really kind of comes from, with alongside of it, a lot of doubt and fear is being peppered at you.
Yeah.
And then sort of maybe persevering through that. And I recognize that doubt and fear, there's also, there's a safety component to it. But I think often for a lot of us, when we're venturing onto a new path of anything, doubts and fears start to come into it as just sort of a survival mechanism that we have inside. So I've kind of learned to think to myself, let's embrace it a little bit to see where it is, right?
I would say go towards it and surrender.
Yeah.
Look to see where it is that the fear originates. What occurred in the past that had me believe that was a fear? What am I associating that with? What am I resisting and judging? So there's a pathway to surrender those things, because yes, there's fear, or you have fear with you, but fear doesn't need to prevail with you. When you have fear, you have the ability to put the fear down, to become lighter in the world. And so I would say, yes, it's a signpost. It's a direction. And when I have fear, I can go, oh, okay. Okay, hold on a sec. Okay, there's going to be a gift in this. Okay, what is it? Okay, let me give myself to it. Let me surrender that. Look to see where the pain is in myself and kind of give that up, and so that I can be free of it. Because out of anything in the world, what I have to do is be able to, and what I have available to me is the joy of my life and the way I react to my life.
Right.
And fears, I've discovered, are typically time bound. They're bound in the past, which is our sense of identity, or in the future, which is a sense of salvation. Those are where fears typically originate. So
Right.
someone's going to keep me from having business success. Someone's going to keep me from having that car. Well, that's sense of salvation. Someone said something about me. They don't know who I am. That's a sense of identity. And that all came from the past, or it all comes from a sense of the future. And so when we really powerfully come into the very present now, the only thing that could ever exist beautifully right now, and I make my decisions from now, then I'm just attached to the infinite. It's just a beautiful journey. It sounds all kind of crazy and woo-woo, but I had so much story over people that would communicate things like this, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they were all right the whole time.
But you make a lot of sense, because yes, there is decision making being paralyzed by doubt and fear, really either something in the past or concern about the future, right? It's either, and in those two spaces we cannot control, obviously, right?
And it
It
doesn't
happened or it's not going to happen.
and
But whatever reason, those things are kind of coming in
paralyze
and
us.
saying, yeah,
It paralyzes. It's crazy.
absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, let's talk about a billion bottles.
Yeah.
Tell us what is a billion bottles? What's a billion bottles? And sorry, Amy, jump in. Did you have a quick question, or are you just giving us a high five there on that?
No, I really resonate with what you were both just saying, because I listened to this podcast. Anyways, when are you guys starting your podcast? And they talk about like living in the moment. All we have is right now is the moment that we are in. And if we're living in the future, we're living out of anxiety. And if we're living in the past, we're living in depression.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Yeah, it's the
100%.
truth. I mean, it's the truth of it all. I love, as in my readings, this place that the only thing that could ever exist is right now. Even something that would occur in the future would only happen right now as well. Anything that happened in the past happened right now. There's no time. It's just a complete construct. Complete construct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump to a billion bottles, Dave. I want to hear about it. Tell us about a billion bottles, sir. And it's actually the big chat, the big talk around plastic bag. Tell us about that. Tell us everything about that. We want to know.
20 million kilograms of material collected, 20 million kilo. It's a massive accomplishment. Not so much in the plastic yet, because a billion bottles, when we consider that humanity uses 1 million a minute, we've collected something like 17 hours, 16 point something hours of human usage. We have a long way to go, but we've created the supply chain for it. We've created a way to actually collect all of that and return it. We've engaged the collectors. We've monetized it effectively where we're profitable. We have customers looking for more and more demand. We're really scaling and becoming exponential now. So the billion bottles is a giant milestone for humanity. It's a real proof of concept. It's exhibited to the world that we did it. We can do it. And it's not against the laws of physics. It's only creative thinking that makes it so. Nothing we are doing is against the laws of physics. As much and as many people who told me that I couldn't or shouldn't or wouldn't or whatever it was, they lived in their own construct of their own ability that they were trying to impose on me. I was just lucky enough to not accept it. So a billion bottles, a powerful, remarkable opportunity in the world. I'm immensely proud. I created something for the world that will live way beyond me. Yeah.
It's quite the legacy. I mean, it's You know what? It's the new take on the McDonald's sign, right? The
Right?
55
Right.
billion burgers sold. Now you can have 1 billion bottles. Saying it's a new take.
No, 2 billion bottles.
Which is a
3
whole new,
billion bottles.
right? Remember those signs, McDonald's signs? Hey, it's the new take, and it's like, we going from consumerism to like restoring the planet,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Right, like a billion. Like it is, and I mean, you definitely expressed your happiness and gratitude around that, but it must have been a bit of a like you woke up one day and just, oh fuck. We pulled a billion. We prevented a billion bottles going into the ocean.
What? Totally. I've had to persevere so much that, I had my own family tragedy as well and stuff. There's just so much that I had to come through. And again, I communicate that, and I attest that everything that has occurred has been a powerful and immense gift in my life. And I get to carry it with me. I've become the person that's been able to get this done. And it's just remarkable. Even the executive team, that the business itself and running the business, that's its own whole kind of crazy thing. There's, hundreds of staff around the world, and we continue to hire and grow. What's all of it's been amazing. And I will, always just communicate that it comes from that centeredness, the consciousness, and that if, I recognize now those times in my life where I was so afraid, it was the fear that was keeping me from getting what I wanted. Not
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. We're getting close to end of time, and I appreciate, you have a very busy schedule and day, sir. Let's spend a little minute, talk about the foundation a little bit, if you would, as a separate arm, and then you can bridge that into how people can get involved, what they can do in terms of, you can talk specifically about a foundation or plastic bank, or you can talk about anything as a whole. And then, why don't we sort of end on that?
People get involved in the end. Well, I expect you to go to plasticbank.com. Was Amy, I think, right?
Yeah.
And plasticbank.com, and just put your name in the hat there, so we could communicate with you too, and keep you abreast of the things that we're doing in the world. As anyone listening should do that too. That's, certainly there, Plastic Bank. But I think that more authentically, what I need everyone to do is go into a store and take the courage and really communicate with a store manager and say, show me the items that have recycled content. If there's a takeaway here, that's what I want everyone to do. Ask them, say, well, where's social plastic? Do you know about Plastic Bank? What's social plastic? What's that? That creates the demand for the brands. The customer of the brand is not the consumer, it's the retailer. So they listen to the retailer. And so if you go to the retailer because you're the customer of the retailer, you've got influence in the world. That's incredibly powerful, incredibly important for all of us. And we can't be in this conversation without the knowledge that when you buy something with excessive packaging, with single-use material, that they're going to continue making that. I communicated it before, but it's every time you buy something, you vote. So you have a power in the world. You're immensely powerful as a human, as a consumer, to not just demand that they provide materials that aren't degrading and killing the world, but ones that are actually repairing it. And so that's the only ask that I always have for any audience that I'm in front of, is be powerful, know that you're powerful, be the change that you want to see in the world. And it's your journey, and it's authentic to do it. And remember that if you're in front of that store and you take the courage and you ask that store manager, you exhibit that leadership that the world is so desperately needing. They need to see people truly stewarding. I think that's why Greta Thunberg has really captured the attention, because she was a courageous young lady. And in spite of everyone and Trump and everybody else, she stood forward, and that's what the world needs. And it takes that little moment to come into the present moment, to come out of the fears of our lives, to create the infinite. And that's always the ask. Now, our foundation is putting knowledge in the hands of our collector communities, because we know that, once they're banked, once they have the ability for financial inclusion, their lives change. Once they have the knowledge of it, they don't even realize what a bank account is or what it could provide, or all of those things. And access today to that are handsets and phones. And so the foundation is providing that as well. It's a profound and powerful gift into the hands of the collector community, because it really makes it valuable and accessible and real. And as we move forward in the development of the application that we have, the consumer facing application, you'll be able to get notified when a collector around the world reaches certain targets. So, let's say you're with Jean, and Jean has now collected 10,000 kilos. Well, you could send him words of encouragement and love and have him be seen by the world. It's a powerful tool. So the foundation goes on to bring more knowledge into the hands of the collector communities around the world by giving them access and connection into technology and into banking. So that's what the foundation does. And so there's a bunch of ways to be involved, really, because that on its own, gives someone a handset and they could easily return 10,000 kilograms of material. So, providing that emphasis is exponential for the donor.
Amazing. Awesome. First off, a couple of things. What would you like to leave everybody with? I mean, I think you kind of did, but if there's one other extra thing you'd like to leave everybody else with, and then why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you and all of that? So.
Well, I'm always LinkedIn, super easy. David@plasticbank.com, super easy. Always love chatting to people all the time. That's been a real pleasure of all of this. And I don't think there could be any other, anything else that I would want to leave with a listener other than them powerfully knowing that they are, an infinite gift in the universe, and that their leadership is heard, and you're not inconsequential. You're amazing and remarkable and powerful, and the whole world needs you.
Amazing. Thank you, man. That was a pleasure. Pleasure. Thank you for carving out some time for us today.
Awesome.
We'll, I'll post this a little later and some links. Amy, is there anything you'd like to ask or add or anything like that before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for doing what you do. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing and inspiring. And I grew up in a small town, and my mom, I think we did it because we were poor, but it was a great way to learn, as we reused everything. Nothing went to waste. Right. And
she valued everything had right.
So it's
amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, David.
It was my pleasure. Beautiful.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye. Bye, Amy. Bye.
Thank you.